Good afternoon, everyone. I, Professor Miki Barua from the Department of Humanities, First Year Engineering, Vidyalankar Institute of Technology, welcome you all back to the Faculty Development Program on Modern Educational Tools and Pedagogical Practices for Online Teaching, organized by the Department of First Year Engineering, Vidyalankar Institute of Technology. Well, I think our audience have gained new perspectives about the different ways of teaching, especially the online teaching from the last session. And now let us rejoin this afternoon session with rejuvenated energy. We have with us Mr. Sai Kiran Dudiala, Senior Manager, Byju's Think and Learn Private Limited, who shall deliberate on the topic Use of Pen Tablet and G Suite. But first, let me introduce Sir to our audience. A very multifaceted senior management professional inclined to managing operations and delivery with hands-on experience of driving processes and uniting people in high revenue generating organizations to deliver optimal performance. Sir is currently working as National Operations Manager at Career Labs, responsible to functionally head the post-sales operations team at Career Labs, the study abroad division in partnership with Byju's classes. At Byju's Think and Learn Private Limited, Sir was the Senior Manager, Operations and Customer Engagement, where Sir's role during the period was multi-dimensional given the dynamic nature of the company's expansion operations. At the Cambridge University Press India Private Limited, Sir was the Senior Manager, Operations and Customer Engagement, where Sir's role during this period was very dynamic. And Sir was also the ELT examination senior manager and was also the verbal trainer and a business analyst. Once again, on behalf of Vidyalankar family, I extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Sai Kiran Dudiala. I now request Sir to take over this evening session. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nikki. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you quickly confirm if you're able to hear me by typing a yes in the live comments?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Manish, for confirming. Good afternoon. It's wonderful pleasure to be associated with the organization with Vidyalankar and to be delivering this session for you guys. I'm very, very happy and I'm all excited to do this session for you. So I have something to show you on screen. So I'm going to share my screen so that you will be able to see what I'm showing you as well. All right, great. So I quickly want to confirm with you if you're able to see my screen. Are you able to see my screen? Yes. You are, right? Yes, that's amazing. All right. So what are we going to talk about in this session today? All right. So yes, we know that the bigger idea, the bigger picture of today's session is to essentially talk about the modern educational tools and practices that are very, very essential for somebody to know if they're moving to online teaching, right? I am going to specifically focus on two things. One, I'm going to tell you how you should use the pen tablet. What are the different things that you have to remember when you use the pen tablet? And I will also give you a very, very brief orientation into the G Suite, right? So how is it that you can use G Suite, which is essentially used for business purposes? How is that used for teaching? How can that be used for teaching is what we'll be talking about, right? But on a bigger picture, what I will also be talking about is what are the different things that you have to remember when you transit from, a normal classroom, which is just like pick up your books and get into a class and start teaching, which is something that we're all used to. But how is the dynamic going to change when you're moving from a live conventional classroom to an online teaching mode? How does the dynamics really change? How to keep your students engaged? How to really work through the entire scenarios, what we're going to discuss, right? I will definitely especially focus on the hardware and the software that we are supposed to use, but the focus will be more on how essentially, we can all discuss and how essentially we can all transition to the online teaching, which is the norm for today. All right. So a couple of ground rules, because I want to set the expectations straight. Please keep communicating with me through the question box. Obviously, because there's a lot of energy transition that happens. I'm sure you don't want me to be very dull and gloomy, wearing a black color shirt in a dull, dark, room, talking to you without even smiling, right? I would want the same energy from you guys. I know it's a session that's after lunch. I know it's very, very natural for us to, quickly maybe transition into a little bit of sleep. That's not what we're looking at. Please do keep communicating with me. Please throw in your questions, your comments, and whatever you need to ask. Please do keep doing that. Keep a notebook to practice with me, because I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. I'm going to share a lot of experiences that I have carried over in the last 10 years. I'm going to definitely do that. I'm going to ask you for your experiences. I'm going to take your questions. So it's going to be a very, very interactive session. So please do keep a notebook, a pen, pencil, whatever works for you. Please do keep that beside you so that you can note down all the points. And yes, I know we are all very, very busy people, and Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau might get in touch with us in the next 1.5 hours. But please do put your mobile phones on silent. Keep them as far as you can from the mobile phone, simply because we don't want it to distract us. I have kept my mobile phone far away from me and it's on silent mode. So, I would expect the same thing from you as well. All right. So first things first, let me see some nice comments. Are we excited to go for this session? Can I see some enthusiasm in the comments box? Yes, no, you can type in whatever you want, but can I see some enthusiasm, some excitement, some love, some comments in the comments box? Okay, that's nice. I see a lot of comments. Okay, so let me ask you some questions before we get to start with the session. All right, where are you guys attending this session from? Which part of India are you guys from? Can you quickly type in your cities? Which cities do you come from? Can you type in your cities, please? Can you quickly type in where are you really coming from? What are your cities? Where are you attending this session from? Okay, I see people from Nashik, from Gwalior, from Panvel, which I'm assuming that is in Andhra Pradesh. Where exactly are the others from? Okay, Noida, Mumbai, Varanasi, Ratnagiri, very nice. Thane, that's nice. Okay, so looks like we have a pan-India audience today, and I have somebody from my own city, which is Chennai. That's nice. Great. Okay, great. So looks like we have a pan-India audience today, which is nice, which is very nice. And I would really want you to, I would really, really want to appreciate you guys, because, given that all the other people, they maybe have had a great lunch, they're just, slightly going and taking a nice nap, or they're, playing with their children, or they're watching TV, or they're doing something else. You guys have taken the effort to attend this FDP program, which is very nice. And that shows a lot of interest on the fact that you want to really do something, right? And I also understand that you all have realized the importance of how crucial it is to move from a conventional classroom to an online teaching mode, right? And that's the reason why you're here today, right? So that's nice. That's very good. I really, really appreciate you guys on that. So congratulations on attending this session. I hope your earlier sessions also have been great with respect to the content that's being delivered. I will also try and make it as interactive and as useful as it can get for you guys. All right. So the second question I have for you guys, how many years of teaching experience do you guys have? Can you quickly type in your comments? How many years of teaching experience do you guys have? In years, yeah. You can quickly give in your numbers. How many years of teaching experience do you guys have? That's nice. I see more double-digit numbers than single-digit numbers. 7, 23, 14, 25, which is very nice. 20, 11, 7. That's nice. Okay, great. So I'm assuming that the average, teaching experience that this group has is somewhere definitely more than 15 years of teaching experience, right? That's amazing. That's very nice, right? And in fact, something that you should really, really acknowledge about yourself, even after having about 30 years, I see a lot of people saying 30, 22 and all that, right? Even after having so many years of teaching experience, it's amazing to see you guys actually step out, step forward and learn something new, right? That's very important, because I realize at some level we as teachers remain students for our entire lives, right? We have to keep learning something, and I think that's the spirit of being a teacher. So congratulations again to all of you guys, because you guys have taken the effort and you definitely want to learn something new. Okay, so let me now get started with whatever I have in store for you today. I will quickly introduce myself to you so that you understand why I am here and what is my expertise, and why is it that I am interested to come and teach you, or why am I assigned to discuss this particular topic today with you guys. All right. So I'm Sai Kiran, and I belong to this wonderful city that's called Chennai. Right. I'm sure you must have heard about it. I am an engineer turned English teacher. I did my undergraduation in engineering from College of Engineering, Guindy, Anna University, Chennai. I'm sure you must have heard about the college. It is Asia's oldest engineering college. And I belong to this very niche department that's called Material Science and Engineering, which is to do a lot about studying how metals transform at certain temperatures, how they change, what are the property changes, what are the atomic structures and all of that. That's the department that I belong to. But life has been very kind to me. And maybe in the second or the third year of engineering, I realized that engineering is something that is not really what I'm interested in the long run. So I started my career as an English teacher way back in the year 2008-9, and this was when I was in the second or the third year of engineering. So that's when I realized that no, engineering is not something that I am designed to do. I'm more of a teacher that comes to me naturally. So I started doing this in the year 2008, and there has been no looking back since then. Right. So I have taught people in various capacities. In the year 2008-9, I started teaching people who are essentially housewives. That's one category of people that I used to teach English to. And eventually I then moved on to teaching students who were preparing for their entrance exams, like the GMAT, GRE, CAT, LSAT, PSAT, and all of these exams. I have also trained kids on spoken English, especially kids from Korea and China, where English is not really taught as a language. It's taught as a subject. So I've done assignments on that. And then I've also been teaching with the British Council on a couple of assignments to a lot of rural teachers in India, where we go ahead and we teach them or empower these teachers with tools that are required to make their classes effective. Right. So those are a lot of assignments that I've handled, and my expertise has been to do with teaching English. So that's about 11 or 12 years of teaching English. And the good part about this entire experience is that most of this experience has been online. Right. And I think that makes me the best person to come and address you today on how really you can be very, very comfortable with online teaching. Right. So maybe, the specialty about it is that I started teaching online when online teaching was a completely new paradigm shift, right? People did not know what online teaching was all about. And that is when we started teaching online, or that's when I started teaching online. This was in the year 2010, right? So I have been teaching, I don't know, maybe thousands of students since then on English primarily and on verbal aptitude. Then went on to write a couple of these exams myself. Finished my MBA in HR management from Symbiosis Institute of Management, Pune. And currently, in addition to my full-time responsibilities, which Mickey ma'am talked about, I also consult with Cambridge Assessments English, United Kingdom. And I am responsible to ensure that the schools where Cambridge English is being adopted are doing things the right way, right? We essentially want to shift that Indian mentality of teaching English as a subject. We don't really want that. We want English to be taught as a language. So that's my personal mission. And maybe, 15, 20 years down the lane, that's something that I would really, really want to do. But currently, I've taken my baby steps with Cambridge Assessments English, where I consult with a lot of schools and colleges in South Asia, where we really, really talk about how English has to be taught to students. Right. As a full-time assignment, I work with this amazing company that's called Byju's the Learning App. I'm sure you must have heard about it. And if you were to understand the construct within the company, Byju's the Learning App has a lot of divisions. One of them, which is Byju's the Learning App, which deals with classes 4 to 12, kids in classes 4 to 12. There's another unit in Byju's that's called Disney Byju's, which deals with very, very young children, classes 2, 1, LKG, UKG, and below that. I work for another unit within Byju's that's called Career Labs, which essentially works with adults, which essentially works with, or in my language, if I were to say, bigger children, right? Grown-up children, to be honest. And why do we call them grown-up children? Because despite being in their teens, despite being in their 20s, most of these people lack a lot of vision. They do not know what career choices to make. They do not know what really to do after their undergrad programs. And that is where we pitch in, right? In fact, Career Labs is the only company in the entire organization, in the entire country, that's partnered with a lot of organizations like these, be it knowledge partners, be it recruitment partners from engineering, outside engineering, be it startups, or be it industry partners. And we are trying to essentially solve one problem. The problem is these big companies, they do not know how to get the right candidates. And the right candidates do not know how to get jobs in these big companies. They don't know what really they have to do, right? So that is where Career Labs comes into picture. We essentially form a bridge between these amazing companies and these amazing kids, so that we ensure that these kids get the jobs with the right organizations that they want to work to, or if they are aspiring towards higher education, we also ensure that we empower these students with all the skill sets that are required to do their higher education either in the country or outside the country. Now, what do I do as a part of Career Labs? I head the entire post-sales operations, which means all the content that's being created, all the strategy that's being formed with respect to student engagement. I essentially play a great role in reaching out to these students. So that brings me to the topic of today, right? What are we really going to discuss today in this session, right? Which is going to approximately last for the next 90 minutes odd. What are we really going to discuss? First, I will talk to you about why is it important for us to equip ourselves with all the online teaching tools, right? Because many people underrate the entire online teaching experience, which is very saddening, which is very unfortunate. I am very, very, personally very sad about it, simply because, online teaching is very important and one cannot underrate the entire experience. So why is it important for us to equip ourselves with the online teaching tool, especially given the way that COVID has changed the entire experience? It's changed the entire dynamics, right? So that's what we'll be discussing in the first go. Then I will talk to you about the tools that are required. I will get you started on the tools that are required in case you are transitioning from a conventional classroom to an online teaching methodology. And definitely, I'm going to share my experience of using these tools, because there was nobody to teach me on how to use these tools. Most of it is self-explored and self-discovered. So I'm going to teach you, what exactly you should remember while you are using these tools. We will also quickly talk about the general tips and experiences of online teaching, right? I have collated a lot of experiences. Again, when I started off, there was nobody to guide me with this. So I consider this a very, very good opportunity to share my experiences and tips of online teaching. Finally, I will take questions. We'll do a short discussion. I also have a very nice quiz that we have towards the end of the session. And then we'll take some closing remarks and close for the day. All right. So are we excited to get started with the session? Can I see some responses in the comments box? Yes, no. Are we excited, not excited? Are we all ready? Okay, that's nice. Okay, great. So I see a lot of wonderful comments over there. That's very nice. So let's get started with whatever we have in store for today. All right. So if you have questions, please do keep asking questions. I will switch between the PPT and the slide so that I can see your questions. Please do keep asking questions. Please do keep interacting with me, because your energy is going to actually feed a lot of energy and enthusiasm into me. Right. So that's great. Okay, so let's get started with whatever I have in store for today. The first question, being the most important question, why should one equip ourselves with the online teaching tools? Why has it become necessary right now? Right? Let me ask this question to you guys. Why do you think it has become necessary for us to actually equip ourselves with the online teaching tools? Why can't we just go with the conventional teaching methods? Don't give me COVID as an answer. I am not going to take COVID as an answer because it's a very common answer. So I'm not going to take that as an answer. But what do you think are the other reasons why we should equip ourselves with the online teaching tools? I'll wait for some responses from you guys so that we can discuss on them. Yes, Ms. Sangeeta, you are right. It's the need of the hour. It's the need of the time. Yes. Ashok, Mr. Ashok, right? It helps you follow the social distancing norms. That's amazing. But something else, it is very good. That's a nice answer by Mr. George. It helps you reach out to a larger audience, right? In a conventional classroom, you can maybe have 40 students, and maybe you can hold the attention of 40 students together. But in an online class, right, you reach out to 1,000 people, and you can still hold on to the attention of all these 1,000 people. That's very nice of an answer from Mr. George, right? Let me take a couple of more answers as well. Yes, Ms. Bhagyashri, you are right. Students themselves these days, they prefer online classes. They don't prefer conventional classrooms because, it saves them a lot of time in traveling. It saves them a lot of effort. It saves them a lot of money, in fact, right? And, that's a nice thing. Students actually choose online teaching, and that's why it becomes important for us teachers to become equipped with these online teaching tools. I'm just looking through all the other answers. Yes, that's another amazing answer by Dr. Elizabeth. It is very important that for us as teachers, we need to become versatile, right? 100 years back, or let's say more than that, we had the Gurukul system where people were sitting under trees, and there was a teacher who used to teach everything under the sky to one student. But then we slowly evolved from that, and we came up to classrooms, and then classrooms evolved to digital classrooms evolved to smart classrooms. But now I think the next shift in this entire trend is going to be here, and that is going to be online teaching. That's very, very important, right? That's a nice answer. Mr. Shivakumar has a very nice comment. He says, it's a reach to be unreached. Yes, right? It's a reach without getting unreached. You are safe. You ensure that your students are safe, so that, this entire equation doesn't change. The learning doesn't stop. The learning keeps happening. And at the same time, we're all safe because of all the other infections and possibilities that we may have, right? That's a nice thing. Ms. Saras, that's very good. You save a lot of time, right? And yes, Miss Yamini, again, wonderful comment. Learning should not stop, right? That's I think something that we're all striving to get into. We have to ensure that as teachers, our students don't really stop learning anywhere, right? Now another wonderful answer that Professor Mahesh Kumar has given. He says, earlier times students used to go in search of teachers, but now the entire educational industry has changed. Teachers go in search of students, and that's very, very important, right? And as a teacher, if you have to be really, really effective, you want to reach out to a lot of people, then definitely online teaching is the way, right? Because it saves you from traveling to all of these different people, right? So that's a nice thing, right? Definitely, I'm sure we all understand. Another thing that we all fail to understand over here is that online teaching helps the best teachers connect with students, right? So for example, there may be a best teacher who teaches commerce, and this teacher may be from Ranchi, right? Now, what if somebody in South, what if somebody from Tamil Nadu wants to learn commerce, right? Obviously, he has very limited resources available around him if he's looking for a conventional classroom. But if we were to look at getting to the right teacher, getting to the expert, then online teaching is the solution. And another wonderful answer by Ms. Seema, online teaching is available 24/7, right? You don't really need any sort of classroom scenario. You don't need a watchman to open your gate. You can always just open your laptop and start teaching, right? Yes, Dr. Archana, that's what we were saying. As a student, it becomes a very big value proposition because students get to learn from the best teachers if it's an online classroom, right? Now, this is why it becomes very important for us to move from a normal classroom to an online teaching mode, right? Great that we've understood that. Now, let me show you the most common reasons as to why we think we should move on to an online classroom mode, right? Why is it that we should really do that? So if you were to look at it, the major reasons, right? Most of us have already said that online teaching is convenient. It is very flexible, right? It's convenient because the teacher doesn't have to travel, the student doesn't have to travel. And if you want to really understand it from the given scenario, students today take a lot of classes, right? Be it an engineering class or be it students in a school, right? They don't just have one class. They have a maths class, they have a piano class, they have a swimming class, they have this class, that class. They have some 28 other classes that they're attending in addition to their usual curriculum, right? And at this point of time, traveling from one place to another to an expert is very difficult, and experts are not really available at all places. So online teaching becomes the solution for that. It becomes very convenient, it becomes very flexible for people to move or to sort of disseminate this information that they have to a wider set of audience. Now, why should we become the next set of online teachers? It's because though online teaching has started ruling the roost, there are very few people who are equipped enough to teach online, right? Attending a class is different, teaching online is different. It's a completely different dynamics. You may just, attending a class is very easy. You just, click on a link and you sit aramse at your house. But that's not how it works when you have to teach, right? If you have to teach online, there's a lot of preparation that needs to go in. There's a lot of dynamics that you need to observe. There's a lot of things that you need to take care of, right? And there are only very few people who have mastered this art of becoming online teachers. And that is the reason why online teachers are being paid higher. And that's also the reason why we should all shift from a normal classroom to an online classroom, right? Number 3, saves a lot of time from a student perspective. From a teacher's perspective, it doesn't definitely save time. I will tell you why it doesn't save time. But from a student perspective, it saves a lot of time. He doesn't have to travel. He doesn't have to, sometimes students don't have to take bath to attend an online class. That's how it is usually. It saves a lot of time, and they are under the supervision of their parents most of the times. So parents also have started preferring online classes these days, right? Number 4, because they don't have to travel, it's very cost effective. It's very cheap. You just need a laptop, and a laptop, if used properly, can be used for about 5-6 years. So it's a one-time investment that you make so that your kid sort of transitions through the entire undergrad program, right? And now with the COVID-19 coming in, online teaching becomes very important because it follows all the social distancing norms, right? There is a very bleak chance that you may get contracted by the virus. It is very safe, and therefore it's very reliable as well, right? Most of your online classes are recorded, and therefore it becomes a very nice way to keep store of all your classes, and it becomes very easy to share as well. And it's very easy to make notes. You don't really have to write anything. There's a print screen button on your laptop. You can just click on print screen and it automatically, gets saved on a Word document, or it gets saved on a folder. It's very easy to make notes. You can just copy paste. You can use these notes whenever you want. It's not like a notebook that will get torn if it, maybe is drenched in the water. Nothing of that sort. It's very easy to make notes, right? These are the reasons why online teaching becomes the trend, in addition to all the other reasons that we've been seeing. But if you look at it, are we the only people who are wanting to move online? No. If you look at it, all the big organizations in the country today have started moving online. For example, some of the news snippets that I put over there, the Indian Institute of Management, Udaipur, has launched 18 online management courses for all its MBA classrooms, right? Simply because they don't want people to come to the college and, have a lot of risk with respect to the COVID-19 situation. The University of Cambridge has also announced that there will be no face-to-face lectures for the next 1 year due to the coronavirus. It has been announced that every classroom module will move over to online. And that's a big step, given that University of Cambridge is one of the oldest universities in the entire world. They have taken this one wonderful step to move all their classes online, right? The Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, based out of Hyderabad, has also started conducting online classes for GATE coaching. And that's not the only place that does it. We have a lot of places that have started moving to test prep online teaching, right? And that's very important. IGNOU, Indira Gandhi National Open University, we also know has now moved on to online courses for its distance MBA and all the other distance courses that it's giving. It has moved to online courses. It has moved to online modules, right? And AICTE and NPTEL have also planned to move a lot of its content online. They have gone one step further and they are going to, translate all of their content in English to 8 Indian languages, which is Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, a lot of other languages. They're transitioning all of those content into these languages. So the entire world, if you look at it, has started moving online. And in another 20 years from now, it is no wonder if you maybe hear that no, colleges are not going to have physical classrooms. Everything is going to be online, right? Given that we have a lot of online platforms coming in, it becomes very, very expectable that all of these things will happen. Now, that's the world's trend, right? The world is moving online, but what really is the problem? The problem is that 90% of teachers taking the online classes are doing it for the very, very first time. That's a very, very sad thing to be, seeing it, because, I mean, it's not to blame them. Obviously, we can't blame them because they have not been exposed to this entire, domain of online teaching. But for the first time, if you just put in a teacher, and say you have to do classes online, what will the teacher do? The teacher also doesn't have exposure to a lot of tools, right? The solution, there have been a lot of state governments that have started training their teachers to handle online classes. For example, all the CBSE teachers in Kerala have started moving to virtual classes. In fact, Kerala has even launched a TV station which can just transmit all the lessons without having really to have an internet connection, right? So yes, there are a lot of innovations that are possible. And given that a lot of these innovations are possible, and given that we will see a lot of these things in the next 6 months, it becomes all the more important for us to start understanding why the shift has to happen today. Ideally, it should have happened a long time back, but then now this shift has to happen, right? So that is the juncture that we all are at, right? We all need to start understanding the importance of moving online. And, I hope that's the reason why we're all here, right? So what are your comments about this? What do you think? Why do you think teachers are doing online classes for the first time? Why have they not been exposed? Let me see some comments from you guys. Why do you think teachers have not been exposed? Why do you think, teachers, do not have the exposure to do online classes? Why do you think so? Why do you think teachers have to move to these online classes? Yes, TV channel is a very, very good option. In fact, I was spellbound when I got to know the option that the Kerala government has released. Very, very innovative, right? And Kerala is known to do, to keep their literacy rates high. So it's very important, right? What are your comments? Yes, Very right, Mr. Akhil. There was no need so far for us, right? We did not feel the need to move to an online classroom. That is a very, very valid point because, so far we were all very, very happy doing the classroom mode of teaching. There was no need. Financial constraints, infrastructural constraints, especially in a country like India, you may not have internet connection, you may not have your laptop, you may not have a lot of other things. So it's a nice thing. Definitely yes. Yes, Miss Usha, one-on-one teaching is more desirable, right? And trust me, Miss Usha, if you do it online, the results are multifold. Actually, if you do one-on-one teaching online, it is as good as you going there and teaching, right? And yes, Mr. Sukadev, in India, it was not really necessary, right? And yes, Mr. Dhyanoba, a lot of institutions also did not feel the need to move online, if you notice, right? Institutions were also very, very happy building fancy buildings and glass fit classrooms and all that. They were also very happy doing that. But now I think they've also realized that moving online is the need of the hour, right? Yes, that is human mentality, right? When you have something that's working for you, you don't really think of the other things that you should do, right? That's a very, very valid point. I think Ms. Bhumika has raised that point. That's a very valid point, right? When you have, the conventional things that work for you, for example, going by bike to your college works for you. You don't really think of the other options. You don't think of cabs, or you don't think of pooling your cabs, right? Yes, Mr. Anand, we will talk about that. Mr. Anand said that you cannot really connect with your students during online teaching. I am going to give you tips that will help you do that, Mr. Anand. So stay tuned on to the session. Right, we will talk about that, Ms. Rashmita. Right, so yes, I hope now we have all realized that it becomes very, very important for us to move online. Yes, have you all realized that one thing? Have you all realized why it becomes important for us to move to online teaching? Yes. Ms. Yamini, we'll talk about that. I've noted it down, how to conduct assignments. Yes, we will talk about that. Yes, Mr. Umesh, we will talk about the techniques. Definitely, that's what this session is all about. So we will talk about that. Yeah, great. So now that we've realized that moving online is the need of the hour, let's leave that mode of complaining, right? We will have to find a solution. And trust me, technology has given a lot of solutions. There is a solution for every single problem, some paid, some unpaid, some interesting, some not very interesting. There are a lot of solutions that are available online. I'm going to expose you to a lot of these solutions today, but one thing that we all have to trust heart of hearts is that yes, the solution is available. The solution is definitely available. We maybe have not been exposed to the solution. Do we all agree with that? That there are solutions available in technology, but we have not been exposed to it. Do we all agree with that? Yes, we do agree with that, right? Yes, Miss Yamini, we will talk about that. So Miss Yamini has raised a very interesting question. She says, what to do with the campus? We built huge buildings. What to do with the campus if we move online? So guys, remember that online teaching is not going to help you do away with the classrooms, right? There are still a lot of students who prefer face-to-face classes, but online teaching is going to be supplemental to a classroom, and that's something that we will need to understand. There are certain things that can only be taught face-to-face. I am not denying that, but still the online teaching is a very, very effective way of teaching at least 70% of the concepts that we teach in class, right? Yes, for example, Miss Geeta has raised a wonderful comment. Practicals cannot be taught online, right? Maybe you can teach them how to do it, but if you have to monitor and observe the equipments and all of that will be available only in a lab, right? So I definitely get the point that there are certain things that you can't really teach online, right? Yes, that's a valid point, but let's look at the 70% of things that can be taught online before we talk about the things that cannot be taught online. I think that's the kind of mentality that we should have, right? Yes, Mr. Pradeep, you've got it right. It is supplementary. It is not an alternative, right? I will definitely maintain that point. It is definitely going to help. It's going to be very, very efficient, but it's not an alternative, right? And that is the reason why it's important for us to also get equipped with these tools, right? Mr. Baisani, that's Baisani Malakondaya, that's what he says. Personality development doesn't happen in online training. That's a very, very valid point. But the point is, how much of personality development are we able to drive in a live classroom? That's a question that we all have to answer, right? So the point is, yes, all these different points that you're making, that understanding level is not the same, you can use a virtual lab, whatever. I have solutions for all of it, given that I am a very big supporter of online classes, right? Yes, all of this is possible, right? And let me show you some of the tools that are used by researchers across the world, by educators across the world, that help them transmit their classes to students, right? Yes, so let's get on to that. That's the next thing that we're going to talk about, right? So I am going to really talk to you about the 10 commandments of online teaching. Now, these 10 commandments are not written in any particular book. These are all my experiences of how you can make your online classroom better, right? And it becomes very, very important for us to know all of this. Yes, there are a lot of doubts that we have, that is human mentality. We are all very, very resisting to change. But yes, this change must happen, and now is the best time for this change to happen, right? So what is the first commandment that you need to know? The first thing that you need to know is know your technology, right? It's very, very important to know your technology, because in an online classroom, you are just 40% of the entire ecosystem. The technology becomes the remaining 60% of the entire ecosystem, right? It's the same teacher. Trust me, it's the same teacher, but it is a lot of different tools that you have to be very, very comfortable about when you're teaching online, right? So what are the different tools? How do we really set this entire thing up? That's what the session is going to be about, right? So let me give you a little bit of insight on that. Now, with respect to the hardware, you will definitely need a laptop. Again, you can use a desktop, but using a laptop is more convenient because you can take classes from anywhere you want. Now, you can carry the laptop wherever you go. So having a laptop is good. An internet connection is definitely required, but again, don't worry about an internet connection too much, because you can actually take classes even using a mobile hotspot. And I don't know whether you're able to trust this. I am doing this session on a mobile hotspot, right? I use Airtel. My family uses Jio, right? And between Airtel and Jio, I think it's very nice. Not that I'm promoting Airtel or Jio over here, but usually the networks that are there are pretty much enough for you to conduct an online class without any lag, right? None of my sessions have gone unattended because there was no internet. That has been my experience over the last 2-3 years, right? A mobile hotspot is sufficient for you to take a class or to attend a class. You don't need a broadband connection, right? You will need something like a stylus and a writing tab. We'll talk about it in a bit. This helps you keep your entire classroom engaged, right? You will need to be very, very comfortable using software like PowerPoint, Word, PDF, G Suite. Definitely, we have to be very, very comfortable using all of this. And you will also have to be comfortable using mediums of conducting your class. This can be something like a GoToWebinar, something called WizIQ, something called Blackboard Collaborate, Zoom, there's something called Google Hangouts or Google Meets, right? You can use all of these different media that's going to help you conduct better sessions for your students, right? Now, I'm going to start off by talking to you about the hardware that you can use. So what's the checklist? Technically, you will need a laptop. Any laptop with a usual i5 processor should work. And if you were to look at an approximate cost for a laptop, it comes around anywhere between 20,000 to 50,000-60,000, right? That's the broad range. And these laptops should really work well, especially if you're doing a class. Unless and until you want to get into a gaming mode where you want to play games like PUBG and GTA, you don't really require a hi-fi laptop to do an online class, because most of these online class tools are web-based. They are not laptop-based, right? So as long as you have a decent, laptop, you should be able to cruise through this entire journey. Fine. I would suggest that you have an external mouse and a keyboard, right? We understand that a laptop has an inbuilt mouse pad and an inbuilt keyboard, but I would still suggest you have an external mouse and a keyboard. I will tell you why. Another external mouse and a keyboard is good. Have a good pair of headphones that will again cost you somewhere between 700 to 1,000 rupees. They come with a lot of noise cancellation facilities. So you can buy a Philips headphone or a Sony headphone that will help you stay focused through the session, right? You will also have a pen tablet. I will show you what a pen tablet is, and we'll talk about some good models that you can buy. It's very important to have this entire setup on a sturdy and a clutter-free table. Very, very important. Now, for example, if you take me, I have converted my dining table into a work atmosphere. I will also show you a work setup that one of my friends has, right? It's very important to have a very nice table. Looking at the table, you should feel like you should work, right? The table usually that you work for should not have a lot of clutter, because it sort of blocks your entire mind and the way in which you operate. Try to keep your table as light as it can get, but it has to be very, very sturdy, given that you're going to write, given that you're going to tick, given that you're going to do a lot of other things, right? Now, the last but not the least, most laptops come up with a webcam, right? And that webcam should be sufficient enough, especially if you want to show your face. I am using my laptop's webcam at this moment, and I think it's clear enough. But if you want some high definition videos to be shot, then it's always good to have a good webcam, right? Again, a good webcam will cost you somewhere about 1,000 to 2,000 rupees. So you can always get a good webcam. You can decide what you want and what you don't want in this entire checklist, right? Now, one thing that you have to remember, especially when you're dealing with hardware, is the ergonomics, right? You should have a very, very comfortable system of working, especially because you're taking a class, right? Now, let me tell you something that you may not really realize, but taking an online class requires at least 3 times more energy than taking a live class. How many of you agree with this, or how many of you disagree with this? Can I see your comments? Right? Taking an online class requires at least 3 times more effort, 3 times more energy than taking a live class. How many of you agree with this? Definitely, right? Definitely requires more effort, because if you see me, right, I am not just sitting like this and talking to you without any energy. If I keep talking to you like this without any energy, you will definitely feel very bored for 2 hours. Do you agree with me? Right? There's a lot of animation that's required. I keep doing a lot of things with my hands. I keep smiling. I keep looking at myself on the camera because I'm very, very conscious, right? I have to switch between the camera and the PPT. There's a lot of magic that you have to do behind the screen. It's not easy. Definitely not easy, right? Taking an online class, therefore, requires a lot of energy more than the tools. Tools, yes, that's mind space, but shouting, energy, talking, right? Now, I'll tell you another thing that you may have not thought about, right? Guys, when you take a normal class, you stand in front of a class, there are 50 students. Now, there will at least be 5 students in your class who are listening to you. So you can talk, you can look at those students, and you can concentrate with them. They will nod their head, they will smile. Sometimes they are very cute. If they're kids, they're very cute. Sometimes even college students are cute. All this entire thing is very nice in a classroom. But when you're taking an online class, remember, you are talking to a computer, right? If your family members see you doing this, it is almost like a mad person talking to a computer with absolutely no feedback from your students. Right? It requires, yes, Miss Gomati, you're very, very right. It requires a lot of mental engagement. You should assume that your students are listening to you. You should assume that your students are laughing. You should assume that your students are nodding. You should assume that your students are answering to your questions. All of this drama has to happen in your head. And trust me, that's very, 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 very difficult. right? It's very, very difficult. Thank you very much for those amazing comments, Ms. Radhika, right? Now, that is the reason why it becomes very important for you to, you know, enact this entire thing in your head. That's very important for you to be imaginative. It's very important for you to be engaging. At least if not for your students, you should be engaging for yourself, right? So that is the reason why I would suggest you to have a nice ergonomical setup. So talking about an ergonomical setup, right? Coming back to the entire thing, this is an example of of an office setup that one of my friends has at his home. And if you look at it, right, I would fall for this office setup, right? I would work 14 hours in a day if I had an office setup like this. Unfortunately, my office setup is a little too old fashioned. I have converted, as I told you, my dining table into a working table because I like a big table, right? I'm used to big tables in life, right? And I also have a pretty comfortable chair, as you can see, right? And I work out of my bedroom. Most of you are able to see what's happening beside me, right? It's nice, but definitely that zone where you work has to be very, very captivating. It has to be very welcoming. I also proudly tell my office people, this is the corner from where Byju's runs his operations, right? I always keep telling that because that is how I should love my workspace, and only then I will be able to, work, and I will be able to put in all of my efforts. That's very important. Now, if you see this person, he has an amazing office chair, right, with a good backrest. It becomes very important. Now you have next level chairs that give you neck rest as well. Becomes very important if you can get the chair. Costs about 5,000, 6,000 rupees, right? You have an amazing table. You know, you get all these tables online. You can buy them from Urban Ladder, Pepperfry, all of these wonderful websites. Usually 2 feet tall table is what is suggested, because you can then work on it very comfortably. Right now, if you look at it, this friend has had an amazing webcam. This friend has a USB mic, right? He also has a mouse and a keyboard that is outside the entire laptop ecosystem. And then you have a nice green plant that's growing on the table. Good to have a plant growing on your table, because when you look at your computer for a long time, your eyes need rest, and looking at something green actually helps your eyes rejuvenate faster. The most important thing that I want you to observe over here is the laptop stand. Right? It's always good to have your laptop in a straight vision from your eyes, so that you don't bend your head like this. Your head also always has to be straight, right? It's always good to have a laptop at this stage. So what I have done at my place is I have put in a lot of fat books, all these dictionaries and encyclopedias, so that my laptop is like this and I can see my laptop, right? So all of this may sound very silly when we are discussing it theoretically, but guys, it makes a lot of difference in the way you operate, right? Now, this is with respect to your hardware. And to have a decent office setup, if you have a laptop and all of that, if you quickly, calculate the cost for this checklist, it's going to be somewhere between 50 to 60,000. Nowadays, laptops also come with touch screens. They come with screens with a stylus. So I would suggest you to go and buy that in case you're looking at setting up your own working classroom right from home. Now coming to the software, very, very important software. Before we get to the software, very, very important about learning what kind of writing tablets to use. Now, there are a lot of different writing tablets. If you go to Amazon, if you type writing tablets, you'll get lost in the kind of models that it shows. I have tried to broadly categorize the writing tablets into various methods. One, you have something called as a writing tablet, and you have something called as a drawing tablet. A writing tablet is different from a drawing tablet. Drawing tablets are generally costly, right? So please be careful to search for a writing tablet. You can write using a drawing tablet, and if you're somebody like me, I have this one philosophy in life: if you buy once, you should buy a good one, right? Even if it is 10,000, 20,000 more, it's fine, but you buy a good one and it stays with you for the rest 10 years. If you have a similar philosophy in life, go ahead and buy a drawing tablet, because a drawing tablet can be used for writing, but a writing tablet cannot be used for drawing. Right? And when I say drawing, I'm not talking about engineering drawing. I'm talking about these artistic creations. Right? So unless and until you are a person who really, really wants to get into the artistic zone of digital drawing, buy a drawing tablet, otherwise a writing tablet should be fine. Second thing, there is something called as a display tablet versus a non-display tablet. Now, if you look at it, a display tablet is something that I'm showing you over here. This is a display tablet, right? This is a this is a display tablet. So what happens in a display tablet is whatever is there on your laptop screen displays on the tablet, so you know where you're writing. It becomes very convenient. This is what we call as a non-display tablet, right? Which is very, very similar to your mouse pad on a laptop. Using this becomes a little painful if you're not really used to the entire concept, because it takes some time for you to figure out where exactly you write, right? So what is the big difference between this? The cost. Definitely the cost. Our display tablet will cost you anywhere between 40 and 50,000. A non-display tablet will cost you somewhere between 3 and 4,000. That's the huge difference, right? So depending on your budget, you can choose to write. You can choose to buy a display tablet versus a non-display tablet. Most of the teachers use a non-display tablet. Even I use a non-display tablet at home. We have display tablets at office because usually display tablets are something that offices can afford and not homes cannot afford, right? So there is one good brand. If you have noticed, there's a brand called as Wacom. Again, please don't misunderstand that I work for Wacom and I'm promoting Wacom over here. I have been using Wacom for the last 3 years, so I know it's a very good resource to have. There's a Wacom, 6-inch into 3.5-inch graphic tablet, which is this essentially, right? Which is what I'm using even now. And there is a Wacom Cintiq Pro, which is a display tablet, which looks something like this, right? So it's up to you to decide whether you want to have a writing tablet, you want to have a display tablet, non-display tablet. Up to you to decide. Usually a non-display tablet and a writing tablet should be enough to conduct classes, because most of the times people are, even think about it from a student's perspective also. It's not that you're going to write pages and pages, right? You're just going to underline, you're just going to draw arrows, you're going to draw shapes, and to do this is enough if you were to look at it from a utilitarian perspective, right? So this is what you will need to really, really invest in if you're looking at an online class. That becomes very important. Okay, now coming to the most important part, this is how your table will look like, right? Why am I going and showing you the table every single time? If you look at it, a small space is not enough. That's the big mistake that teachers do. I don't know how far it is prevalent in the north, but in the south, there's this amazing thing that's called TableMate that comes at 2,000 rupees. I don't know whether they sell it in the north. It's a small setup where you can just keep one laptop, right? That does not work, especially if you're using a writing tab, right? You should have a good table. You should have a lot of space where you can move your hands around, just like how you're seeing whatever circles I'm doing right now. You should have that space, right? It becomes very important for you to have that space, because otherwise you will not be able to write well. Fine. So it becomes important that you have a good table, a sturdy table that's going to help you with this entire setup, right? Any comments over there? Do you have any questions? What do you think? Is a table a very important part, right? What do you think about it? Is a table an important part? Okay, I'll take some questions actually. Oh, I am actually very happy. I've missed on a lot of comments. Yes, this session is all about practical tips and insights. Yes, Ms. Meenakshi, thank you very much. Mr. Mayur has asked which to purchase, 6-inch, 8.5-inch, 16-inch. I have a 6-inch, which is easy to use. You don't really need a 16-inch. 16-inch is as good as your laptop screen, so you can write a lot of things. You can draw if you want, but a 6-inch should be good to start off with. Also, please remember the costs. Costs are very important, right? Which tablet is best for teaching? Ms. Vaishali, I think I've answered that question. The Wacom is something that you can use. It's a good brand that is used widely across the globe, right? And what is about iPad with an Apple Pencil? Yeah, so we will talk about that. So a lot of tabs, like your Samsung tab, your Apple iPad, they also come with pens, styluses. The unfortunate part is you can't really use it to take a class, You will be able to write in a tab and that gets stored in a tab, but you will not be able to use it in a class, right? So what I would suggest is you can, if you're planning to buy a new laptop, right? Please buy a laptop with a writing screen. It's very affordable, right? That's in fact the biggest regret I have in my life. I always keep pestering my parents to buy me a writing laptop, right? Because the laptop that I have currently right now is very high configuration. It is about 65,000, but there are HP laptops that come to you at 50,000 with a writing screen, right? So it's very, very important to have a writing screen laptop because it's very easy. You just fold so you have a laptop like this, I can show you. So if this is your laptop, right? This is how it's usually going to be. The writing laptops generally come with a folding. You can just fold it and you can start writing over here, right? So it becomes very natural. It becomes very easy to handle. Just that you have to be careful about handling the entire thing. But yeah, you'll have to be very careful, right? You can it is always with the screen that you write. You cannot use it as a board. Be very careful because screens are fragile, they'll break, right? Thank you very much, Mr. Anand. I think that's the point of the entire session, right? Yes, I agree with Ms. Baisani's point, right? One of my friends told me that work from home is not easy. You need a good table, you need a good chair, you need a good setup. Sometimes it's very hot inside your bedroom. You need the AC running in the background, especially if you're from Chennai and even Pune, so hot cities like Pune and Chennai, right? You will need to sip on something. You'll need to keep sipping on something like juice or water that will keep your energy going, right? All these are very important. So it's an entire dynamics that you're setting in office. You get the chai 2 times in a day. You have a lot of your friends. The entire vibe is different. Your friends are working, so you also get that mentality to work. But at home, right beside your working table, there may be a bed where somebody is sleeping. You definitely don't have the mood to work. You also want to leave everything and sleep. So it's a lot of effort, let me tell you. Let me answer Mr. Prem's question over there. What about touchscreen laptops? Touchscreen laptops are good, but please ensure that don't fall for a touchscreen laptop because a touchscreen laptop is different from a writing laptop, right? Nowadays, most touchscreen laptops come with a writing facility. Please buy a laptop with a writing stylus. That is what's very, very important, right? Right. So that's great. So I think I've answered most of the comments. So let me get back to whatever I was doing. So now that we've talked about the hardware that's required for you to take the classes, let's now focus on the most important part, which is the software. Right? Because no matter how much hardware you use, you may even use a VFX system that's being used by Jurassic Park people, right? But unless and until you don't have the right software, it's going to be very difficult for you to use this entire thing and translate. Now, I have given a lot of names in the past, right? We have something called as, GoToWebinar. I'll quickly show you that slide. This is the slide where we're talking about. We have something called GoToWebinar, WizIQ, Blackboard Collaborate, Zoom. A lot of these names are there, right? But all of these are costly. That's something that you have to understand. The free resources over here are Google Meet and Zoom. Most of us have a Gmail ID. So Google Meet is very, very easy. It's very cheap, right? It's also very effective in terms of conducting classes. Zoom is also a nice software that you can use to have these meetings. We'll quickly talk about the advantages and disadvantages of both of these things. But one suggestion that I would give you, if you're looking at doing this at a professional level, then I would definitely suggest you to ask your organization to invest in this, because some of these softwares are usually a little bit pricey when it comes to the paid versions, right? So let's start with Google Meet, because that's the topic of discussion for today. My vote definitely would be for Google Meet, right? Advantages, it's very easy to use, very, very intuitive to use. You don't need special training. Obviously, Google, right, has made things very, very easy. And you can also go to YouTube and just type tutorial to use Google Meet. You will get 110 videos. You can look at those videos and you'll be able to learn what's there, right? The good news is, if you have a free account, right? The bad news generally is if you have a free account, you can only conduct lectures for 1 hour. But COVID has played a very beautiful role over here. Google has announced that till September 31st, the usage is unlimited, which means you can even have a 24-hour Google Meet with anybody you want to talk to. Could be your students, right? Now, if you have a G Suite account, right? Again, you cannot get a G Suite account for yourself. You should ask your organizations to get it. But if you have a G Suite account, then Google Meet is free. It has unlimited usage. You can conduct how many ever classes you want. And the best part is that Google allows recording of all of these sessions. It allows recording. You can record and store it for future. You can add it to a mood, you can add it to an LMS and you can share it, and all these things can happen with a Google Meet. Disadvantage: it does not restrict attendees, right? What do we really mean by that? Number one, anybody with the link can attend, right? Now, if I'm looking at a paid class, right, I would only want paid students to attend. But supposing, say, I am a friend, I am a person who has the link, my friend has not paid, I pass on the link to my friend can also attend the class. So it doesn't restrict the attendees. Number two, it is very nice if you have a classroom that's 20-25 students big. But if you have a classroom like this where there are almost 700 participants over here, right? If we have a classroom like this, you don't know which guy will unmute and which guy will show his camera at which point of time. Becomes very, very sensitive to handle, especially when you have multi-sex students in the same class, right? I mean, obviously we would want to trust our students, but at some level we should also be very, very controlling of the fact that what happens in a classroom, because we have to be in control of our class, right? So this makes Google Meet a not so great place because the class might become unruly sometimes, right? It may not really be the way you want it to be, because somebody may randomly unmute his mic and start speaking. You don't know where the sound is coming from. So that becomes a big disadvantage as far as Google Meet is concerned. And a lot of the other tools that I showed you earlier, they give you class analytics. What do we mean by class analytics? They'll tell you the number of students who joined, number of students who dropped off the class, the average attentiveness levels, were the students listening to you, not listening to you, what questions did they ask, their answers and all of that. Google Meet, unfortunately, does not give you any of these. It doesn't give you any of these different things. It only allows you to have a meeting, and it only allows you to share your screen, right? That's the biggest disadvantage. But advantages outweigh the disadvantages. So my vote would still be for Google Meet. If you're looking at taking a tuition class, or if you're looking at taking a one-on-one class, a Google Meet becomes a very, very easy software to use, right? Now, there are other G Suite applications that you can definitely use, and one of my favorite G Suite application is the G Suite Classroom, the Google Classroom, right? In fact, I have one of my friends, one of my colleagues, whose son is in class 1, and because of the COVID situation, they have transitioned the entire class into Google Classroom. So that, first standard kid, he makes PPTs, he uploads them onto Google Classrooms, he downloads them from Google Classrooms, he does all of these things. I think when I was in class 1, I was eating mud from my house cement floor. And that's what I was doing. But that's the impact that people have. That's the impact that education has had after this entire Google thing coming into picture, right? That's the reason why I'm here shouting at the top of my voice to tell you guys, please transition. That's very important. It becomes crucial, right? So what are the other G Suite applications that we can commonly use? You have the Google Slides, which is a nice alternative to a PPT, right? Which is exactly the same as a PPT. So instead of opening your PowerPoint, you open Google Slides and you start creating your slides. You have Google Sheets, which is an amazing substitute for your Excel. So instead of opening Excel on your laptop, you open Google Sheets and you use it. You have Google Calendar, as the name tells you, it's an amazing place where you can sort of keep all your meetings and all that together. You have Google Docs, right? Google Docs is an amazing substitute for Word documents, right? Instead of opening Word on your laptop, you use Google Docs. Google Forms, right? There is no substitute for Google Forms in real life. Google Forms is one of my favorite features in G Suite because it helps you build an assignment. It helps you grade an assignment. A lot of people there were asking me, how do we really conduct a test? Google Forms is your answer. You create a form, you create a question, you want a multiple choice question, you want a multiple answer question, you want to have a short answer, long answer, whatever you want, you can do it. You can assign marks. You can do all of this using Google Forms, right? Ultimately, at the end of it, you'll have one link
that you can share with your students, and students will obviously use the Google form and take the assessment, right? You have Gmail. I'm sure you know about this. I'm not really talking about it too much. You also have something called as Hangouts, which is nothing but Google Meet. Hangouts is a chat application. It's very similar to WhatsApp. It's very similar to Telegram and the other chat applications that you use. You can do video calls, you can do normal calls, you can chat, you can meet, you can do everything. And all of these files are stored on something called as Google Drive. Generally, if you have a basic plan, you get 30 GB of storage online, right? 30 GB is huge generally. And if you don't want, you can always save a copy of it in your system. What's the advantage of using all of this? Now, supposing, say, you have an assignment or a document where you have to work with another colleague of yours, or your student is submitting to you and you want to do the changes on the go. That is when these applications will help you, because what happens, remember when you used to do PhD, or when I used to do my master's, I remember very well, I used to type a Word document project and name it project report -final, send it to my guide. The guide makes his changes and sends back project report final. Then again, I make changes and send it to him. It becomes project report final latest. He makes his changes and he sends it back. Project report final latest one, right? Google Docs helps you come out of this entire drama, right? It's just one file. You can see all the changes that are being made. You can comment on the go, and people get to learn a lot of it, because sometimes I'm sure a lot of students have come and asked you, especially if you're an English teacher, they'll come and ask you, sir, you're teaching so much in class. Can you write an essay in front of me and show it to me? I would want to see how you do it. Right? That becomes a very, very sensitive thing to do, and becomes very easy to do if you have Google Docs, right? So Google, G Suite applications become very, very interesting and easy to use, especially if you want to have multiple people working on the same documents. If it's easy, because even if your laptop crashes, you can still access it from wherever you want. You can access it on your phone, you can access it from your tab, you can access it from any browsing center. You don't really need to have the file in your laptop, right? So for a classroom, I think for an educational institution, Google Classroom becomes the most easy tool that you can use. What is Google Classroom all about? Google Classroom is essentially that place which puts all of these different things together, right? And I'm going to spend the next 5 to 6 minutes talking about what Google Classroom is all about and where you will be able to find this, right? Now, let me take some questions. Meanwhile, I can quickly maybe take some questions. Yeah, what about maths in G Suite for giving or solving equations? How are these, especially G Suite? Google Docs are very helpful. Yes. Now, I think Dr. Kulveer, I have talked to you about delivering math lectures. If you have a writing tab, math becomes very easy. You can even write the complex of equations using a writing tab. But I'm now going to show you how to use a Google Classroom, right? Now, I'm sharing my screen again. Now, where will you be able to find a Google Classroom, right? That's very important. This is my inbox. And on the inbox, you'll have a lot of apps, dots over here. Click on the dot, you will find all of the different things. Gmail, Drive, Docs, Sheets, Slides, Calendar, blah, blah, blah. And if you scroll down, you will find Google Classroom. So just click on Google Classroom and it will open up for you as a separate window where you can create your own classroom, right? For example, I was just creating a classroom, demo classroom today just to show you guys, but I can always create another one. You have a plus button over here. Click on the plus button and you create a class. Now, let's say you create a class that says, the class name can be, mechanical engineering section A, right? Or section A can be in the next part. So you have mechanical engineering section A. Subject can be, strength of materials. I'm so sorry that I'm using a lot of engineering things, but yeah, strength of materials. And if you want, you can give them a room, or you can't. You don't have to. Just create, and your entire classroom gets created in 1 second. Right? Now, what happens after you create a classroom, right? After you create a classroom, what's really going to happen is that you can use that classroom to add people, right? Now, if you look at it over here, it is section A. See, it's asking, it's prompting you to do a lot of things. It's asking you to announce. You can send in any announcement you want. You can communicate with your class. You can, create classwork. You can create an assignment or a quiz, or you can upload material. You can use questions. You can conduct live classes using Google Meet. You can add them onto your Google Calendar. And the good thing is whatever you do over here gets saved on a class drive. There's an automatic folder that gets created in the drive, and it gets saved automatically, right? You can also add people by typing your students' names, and you can also maintain the grades of these students, right? If you add students, you can also maintain the grades. This is how powerful a Google Classroom can work to be, right? You can do a lot of this stuff online, but you know what the biggest problem is? The biggest problem is, right, you will only be able to add students who are in your domain. For example, my email ID is saikiran@thecareerlabs.com. So I will be able to add students who have the email thecareerlabs.com. I will not be able to add gmail.com. If I want to add gmail.com, I have to go to my Gmail account and do it. Not all the Gmail accounts have a classroom feature, right? That's the only disadvantage, which means all of your students need to have an email ID. And sometimes giving an email ID to all your students also is a little costly sometimes, right? So that becomes the only biggest disadvantage as far as using a Google Classroom is concerned. But if your organization is fine with it, I think you should just go ahead and do it, because it is just like a classroom. You can do whatever you want, and you can, do all the activities that are required in the Google Classroom itself, right? Yes, Ms. Rosaline, I think I've answered your question. Mr. Manish, let me take you that. How to add mathematical equations in assignments or quiz using Google Classroom? It's very simple. Use Google. Google is your best friend. You can always type mathematical equations online, right? There, I don't know whether you're able to see my screen. I'm so sorry. I'll share my screen, right? You have a lot of these websites that will allow you to type mathematical equations. The one that I use is called math.typeit.org, where you will be able to type any mathematical equation you want. And then you can copy paste that mathematical equation into your question. It's very simple. Ideally, you use MATLAB, but then if you don't have MATLAB also, it's completely fine, right? I think I've answered your question there. How to take attendance in GCR, Google Classroom. Miss Anurati, I think you don't really have to take attendance. It gets automatically saved when they attend your class. You don't have to take attendance, right? But if you really, really want to take attendance, you will have to, use a Google form to take a Google attendance. That's how it works. Okay, Mr. Manish, directly not possible. Directly not possible, Manish, because our keyboards don't allow us to do that. You will have to copy paste it, do it on another platform and copy paste it back. Right? Now, what about engineering graphics teaching? Very good question, Mr. Dhyanobha, right? You will have to use the software. You can use ANSYS, you can use CFD, you can use any software that you're using, and you will be able to do engineering teaching. Right? Again, I would always say, use Google for answers to all your questions. So there is again, I will just quickly show you my screen. There is a good tool that's called smartdraw.com, right? Where you will be able to teach technical drawing to people, right? You can either use it online or you can download. You can always use this website called smartdraw.com that helps you teach engineering drawing or even electrical drawing to students, right? So that's how it's usually done, right? Now, yeah, next one, next question, Miss Aishwarya, how to teach accounts, ledger accounts, balance sheet. I think that's the most easiest thing that you can do. Excel sheets, Google Docs are the answer. Google Docs are the solution to all of this, right? Google Docs help you maintain your ledger sheets, balance sheets, account sheets. You can definitely do that, and you should be really good and comfortable with Google Docs. That becomes very important, right? Now I will take Miss Rosalind's question over here. Isn't having a platform like a Moodle or any other LMS offers more features than Classroom? I found Google Classroom very restrictive, right? Now, Miss Rosalind, let me answer that question. A Moodle software is used when you have to record videos and put it somewhere for future usage. It becomes like a live recording platform. But a Google Classroom is where you use, something like this. A live stream is something that's possible only with Google platform, Google Classrooms or Google Meet, right? Moodle is where you can record and put it somewhere, right? You will not be able to do live classes if I'm not wrong. Right. Now, I see a lot of questions that says, sir, what about medical practitioners? How do we dissect the body? Right? No. So I don't know whether the intention is to prove that online teaching is off, but my only answer to all of you, Google is the solution. I can show you if you want to, right? Just share your screen, just for the sake of motivating you, right? I'm sharing my screen. Go to Google, type teach anatomy online, and you will get a lot of links that will help you teach anatomy online. It's very simple, right? Guys, I am somebody who believes that every problem in the world has a solution. And given that we are talking about online classes, every problem on online classes, Google has a solution for it. You have to trust it and you will have it, right? I think that answered your question. Now, what is my take on Microsoft Teams? Microsoft Teams is also very, very good. It is very similar to Google G Suite. Only problem with Microsoft Teams is that people don't really use Microsoft Teams that much. You should have a Microsoft ID or an Outlook ID to do that. People don't really use it too much. Gmail is something that a lot of people use. So I think it becomes easy for us to really do all of it on, Google, right? Now, yeah, Mr. Praveen, that's a good thing. There's also something called SmartDraw. SmartDraw is useful for electronic circuit diagrams as well. Yes, Praveen, you should use that. It has a lot of these capacitor symbols, transistor symbols over there that you can quickly use. You don't have to draw. You can just place it. It's like a placeholder and you will be able to do it, right? Surface Pro is a good laptop that you can buy, right? But it's a little costly. I think HP does the trick most of the times, right? Great. So good. Yes, Tamil Selvi, thank you very much for resonating with me. Every problem has a feasible solution. You just have to put your minds to find out the solution. That's what I think, right? Now, how do you, now this is a good question that Ms. Preeti has asked me, right? How do you use whiteboard in Zoom? How do you use whiteboard in Zoom? How do you use whiteboard in Google, right? Everywhere using a whiteboard is very simple. I will give you the dummies guide to use a whiteboard, which is what I was talking to you about in the next 1 minute, right? Always, keep a empty slide. Just keep an empty slide. The empty slide is your whiteboard. Now go to the bottom left of the slide. You have something called as a laser pointer, pen, highlighter. Choose a pen and draw whatever you want to draw. Write whatever you want to write. Now, please pardon my handwriting because I'm using a mouse to do all of this, right? But you can draw, you can write, you can do whatever you want, and you can do all of this just on a plain PPT. And trust me, you can also highlight, right? You can highlight, you can mark, you can draw, you can do anything you want. You can do whatever you want. Right? A good writing pad will help you over here if you have a plain slide, right? I hope that answered a lot of your questions. Let me quickly see if I can take a little more questions over there. I'm so sorry. I did not share my screen. I'm very sorry. Right. So what I was trying to do is you can always have a white slide. Okay. Now you have a white slide. On the bottom left, you have something called as a pen. You can choose a pen. And if you want, you can draw, you can write, you can do whatever you want. You can mark. This is what I was trying to tell you. You can mark, and you can, this is my favorite drawing as a kid, a hut and, natural landscape. But then you can use highlighters. I can show you how to use a highlighter. So you go to the bottom left, choose a highlighter, and there you are. You just choose a highlighter and then you can color, you can do whatever you want, all up to your creativity. And this is where a writing pad will help you. If you have a writing pad, your handwriting can actually look very, very good, right? So that is how you use you don't really need a whiteboard software to do that, right? So, I think I've pretty much answered your questions over there, right? So guys, again, I really, really want you to start accepting one thing. The acceptance is, please, start believing that this is going to work. Unless and until you start believing this is going to work, it's not going to work, right? Please start believing that this is going to work, and it will work. It has worked for 90% of all the cases that I wanted to teach my students. So it will definitely work, right? Miss Varsha, that's an assignment that I'm going to give you. You can go online and find out. I'm sure there's something called something to teach you chemistry equations as well. There's balancing equations also online. Just go online and you will be able to find it, right? So now, given that we have talked a lot about, what to do, what not to do and all that, I will quickly run you through, some more tips that you have to remember in case you're looking at, using or coming into online teaching. The next thing is, guys, as I already told you, there is a lot of drama and circus that you'll need to do behind the screen. So please expect the unexpected. Anything may go wrong, right? You may have internet issues. Definitely you may have internet issues, right? And when you have internet issues, what do? Always have a backup connection, right? If you're using a broadband, as I told you, have a phone as a broadband connection, a backup connection. If you're using a phone mobile hotspot, please have a backup connection online, right? If you do not want to invest in a internet, you can always use your neighbor's connection as a backup connection. Don't use your neighbor's connection as a main connection. Obviously, they're not going to like it, but then you can always have a backup connection. Now, the most common mistake people do over here, I have Airtel, somebody in my house also has Airtel. So mine goes, my house, that the other person's internet can be used as a backup connection. It doesn't work that way. Airtel is down, any Airtel connection in the world will be down. So always try to have another, maybe a Jio or a Vodafone, something, of a different service provider as a backup connection. That works, right? Be careful and be aware of hardware or software issues. You don't need to have a solution for everything, right? But be aware of the fact that yes, there may be issues that come up, and always keep a plan B. That's very important, right? Now, again, as I told you, in case something goes wrong, always have a plan B to engage your students. It could be a short assignment. It could be a link you post, ask them to read and come back for 15 minutes by the time you figure out what's happening, right? Or it could be just saying that, okay, guys, there's an internet connection, take a break, right? Please keep an alternate plan. Don't leave your students hanging, because that's not going to help, right? And most importantly, people, don't panic. Don't panic. Panicking is not going to help, right? I've seen a lot of teachers getting very flustered, when things don't go the way they want to go. Don't panic. It's fine. People understand. Your students also know that you're doing this for the first time, so they're also very, very appreciative of this fact. People understand, so you don't really have to panic about this entire thing. Number 3, create the presence. Very, very important, because most of the times when you take a class, it's like telling a story, right? So use a lot of these expressions, laugh in between, smile in between, take names of your class, of your students, keep your slides interactive, use pictures, right? Use your voice, go up and down, use a lot of these emotions in the entire session, because without all of this, people will fall asleep. We all know this. For the past 20 years, I think that's the challenge that we've all tried to solve. Our students fall asleep in the class. We don't want them to fall asleep. So please make sure your voice goes up and down. You talk, you ask questions, you laugh, and keep your slides interactive. Use pictures, right? Some of the times what happens is when you change the slide, people are very interested. I know a lot of you, how many of you went ahead and read this, right? When I was actually talking to you about, expecting the unexpected. A lot of you, I'm sure, are going ahead and reading this, right? So people, your students will also do that. Your students will also see the comic, the cartoon that's coming in the slide. They would want to see what exactly is happening, right? So creating the presence is very, very important. That's number 3 that you should remember. Number 4, establish the sense of comfort, right? For that, you should be comfortable. And I think that's where we as teachers take a big step, right? You are the teacher. You know everything in the world. At least you know one thing more than your students, right? Switch on the laptop with that confidence, right? Yes, I understand that there will be different difficult topics like integration and differentiation to teach, right? But what big deal? If you have a writing tablet, an integration is this and a differentiation is this, right? Again, pardon me for my handwriting, but then this is all, right? Life is all about writing the right ways, right? We know a lot of teachers have very, very bad handwritings on the board. Same is the thing over here, right? As long as you're able to write well on the board, I think you should be fine with it. And yes, people know that, there are difficult topics, and you as a teacher must be versatile enough to deliver the different topics, right? Now, the most important thing over here, remember guys, as much as you are worried about teaching online, I think your students are also worried about attending the classes online. More than your students, I think their parents are worried about sending their students to an online class. So giving that reassurance is very, very important, right? You keep telling your students, it's fine, you will understand. If you don't understand, I'm always there to help you. That sort of comfort needs to be given to your students. If people feel left out, which is very, very easy to happen in an online class, remember, your reputation as a teacher will be affected to a great extent, right? So important, very important to manage your class quite well, right? Keep asking for feedback, right? Now, when I say feedback, it's not necessarily a grading. It's just a feedback in the form of questions. Now, for example, if you notice, even in this session, I have always been toggling between the PPT and the screen. I've been taking your questions. I've been asking questions just to ensure that all of you are with me, right? So keep asking people to respond to your questions. Otherwise, it will become a monologue. It will become very boring. It will become a lecture where you are going to talk and give gyan to people, and people are not really going to understand what's happening, right? And sometimes, as it just happened in the session, you may forget to switch on the screen, right? So it's very good for people, it's very good for people to check, right? Always to see whether, the slide is working, not working. It's always good to check, but otherwise, if you don't do that, you can keep talking for 2 hours also, right? So keep asking for feedback, and that's very, very important. Guys, this is the key of the session, right? Update your content. Now, this is where online teaching becomes very different from a conventional classroom, right? Now, for a conventional classroom, you pick up a book, keep it like this, get up and start walking, go into your class and start teaching. That's all. But for an online class, that's not how it works. Now, imagine for me to do this session that was 2 hours long. Now, I will ask you a question. How much time do you think I would have spent to prepare for this session that's 2 hours long? How do you think, how much time do you think I would have taken to prepare for this session that's 2 hours long? Can you give me a very, wide guess of numbers? Okay. Ms. Dipali says 2 days. Ms. Vaishali says 3. I don't know what 3 that is. 3 hours, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. Ms. Vaishali? 6 hours, 1 day, 6 hours. Ms. Chandrakala says 5 hours. Okay. Okay, I'll give you the right number. To do a session that's 2 hours long, I prepared this morning for 3 hours, right? And that's also because I'm very, very comfortable using all of these tools. But especially if you're doing this for the first time, trust me, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. So it becomes very, very important for you to prepare. You cannot walk into an online class without preparing. You can never do that. It's not possible at all. You should have a PPT, you should have a PDF, you should have a Word document, you should have something. That's the ground rule. You can never walk into an online class without preparing. You should have something to engage your attendees, right? So people, please keep updating your content. Now, why am I asking you to update the content? Is very simple. Do you think, now let's say I have another session after let's say a month. Do you think I can use the same PPT that I showed you today for the session that's going to happen after a month? Is that a yes or a no from you? I'll take Sushrut's question out there. Is this session sponsored by Google? This session is not sponsored by Google. In fact, I've been endorsing quite a lot of brands over here in this session. Right? It's not sponsored by Google. Right? Yes, it's a big no. I can't use the same PPT if I were to do the same session for 1 month later. I'll have to update my content. Right? That becomes very important, especially if you're doing an online class. You can't use the same content again and again. Right? First time it requires a lot of time, but as you go, you'll be very comfortable with it. So update your content and check your content before every class. You don't want to be in an embarrassing situation otherwise. Right? Right, 1 second. I'll just share my screen again. Good. So next point that's very important is, ask close-ended questions. This is a point where a lot of teachers miss out. Okay? Ask your questions. Ask questions where people can answer you in 1 or 2 words. If you're going to ask them, okay, introduce yourself. That's a question for which people will not type an answer. Right? Introduce yourself. How do you think somebody can introduce themselves? By chatting? No, that's not how it works. So ask close-ended questions. Ask questions where the answer is most of the time a yes or a no, or ask questions where people can give you a 1-word or a 2-word answer, right? Whatever it is, keep asking questions. Never make it a one-way conversation, because it's going to be very draining for you as a teacher to have a one-way conversation. It's going to be very draining for your students to also have one-way conversations, right? And please keep checking every now and then. I would suggest every 15 minutes once. We'll talk about why 15 minutes, but every 15 minutes once, keep checking whether your people have understood and whether your people are with you, and then you move on. Otherwise, the whole purpose of this class goes for a toss, right? Next, why are we talking 15 minutes? Please know the attention span of your audience, right? The average attention span of human beings is 8 seconds, which is less than that of a goldfish, right? So every 8 seconds, you want to do something, right, to your audience that will quickly help them refocus. It can be a snap, it can be a clap, it can be a laugh, it can be a switch of screens, it can be anything. But please do something once every 8 seconds. Keep your voice going up and down, because that's how much your people will listen to you. And I think all of you will understand that your voice is the very most important asset when it comes to this entire thing, because your voice is the one that keeps motivating. I know I don't have a very great voice, but what I always know is I've always envied people with a nice smooth voice who can talk English in a very nice way. I've always envied that, right? But I know one thing, I can keep people hung on to the session with my voice, because I'm a very good storyteller. I keep telling stories, I keep motivating people with my voice, and I hope you agree with it as well, right? I know I can do that. And that is the confidence that you should have when you are delivering an online lecture as well. Very, very important to keep your voice modulating up and down, right? I see a lot of beautiful comments over there, right? Which says, yes, sir, your voice and all of that, which is very nice. Thank you very much. But I think that is a very, very important point that you need to remember as well, right? The last few set of tips, right, that I would love to give you in the 10 commandments rule. The 9th commandment, guys, keep it simple, right? This is where I think the 10-20-30 rule is a very, very nice rule that I follow when I do my class. Obviously, I didn't follow that for this session, but when I do my classes for students, I always use the 10-20-30 rule. What is the 10-20-30 rule? Keep your presentation to 10 slides, right? Try to finish the topic in 20 minutes. And the font on the slide has to be on a 30 point. Why? People are not going to listen to you beyond 10 slides. People are not going to listen to you beyond 20 minutes. And using a 30-point font makes sure that there is only so much information available on the slide. One big mistake that people do, they type texts and stories on the slide. Very, very bad thing to do, right? If you've looked at all of my slides, they are always pointers that will help me deliver the information. They are not stories. Don't have stories on your PPT, always have pointers. Pointers are important, pointers are enough because you are the subject matter expert, right? So it's a very nice rule to follow, the 10-20-30 rule, right? And it helps streamline a lot of content. You can go online and you can search for more literature on 10-20-30 rule, but it's an amazing rule that has worked for me in the past. And the last commandment for today is the 4 P's of the class: plan, prepare, practice, and perform, right? What should you plan? Know your audience, know your content, know your topic. I think knowing your topic and content is something that we very naturally, do as teachers, but what we don't do is knowing our audience. Knowing our audience is very important, right? There are certain ways you'll be able to engage a school crowd. There are certain ways you'll be able to engage a teenage crowd. There are certain ways you'll be able to engage teachers, right? Adapting to this is very important, right? And as I told you, prepare. Use the 10-20-30 rule. 10 slides, 20 minutes for your content. You can use a little bit of aage piche to give a little bit of introduction and conduct a quiz and all that. But 10 slides, 20 minutes of content, and 30-point font is what you should always, focus on whenever you're delivering a lecture. Practice, because even Hitler used to practice for every small speech that he used to give you. Great speeches are always done by practice. So please practice as much as you can, right? And then you are all set to go ahead and perform. Remember, guys, these are the same students who used to love you in a live class. They will love you as much or even more in an online class. And it is your duty to ensure that they love you in an online class, right? And after your colleges reopen or your schools reopen, people must tell you, we loved you more in an online class than in a live class. And I think that's the comment that you should all work for, right? So that's very, very important. Now that we've talked about what and all you should do for an online training, let me also quickly tell you what you should not do for an online training, right? First things first, don't overwhelm your students. Don't overburden your students. And that is where I think the 10-20-30 rule helps, right? Keep it to one topic, keep it to 10 slides, because beyond that, people are not going to absorb the information. Number 2, very important. I think as teachers, we all have this very protective feeling about our students. We always think that the students are completely ours. When they are doing an online class, they are not completely yours. Remember that they may have a mother sitting right next to them, feeding them food. They may have a couple of siblings running in the hall. They may have a baby in the room, in the house that's crying on the top of its voice. They are not completely yours. You need to be empathetic of this fact, right? This is where you do not expect perfection in a classroom, in an online classroom especially. Yes, there are things that will go wrong. You should forgive them and move on, because the learning is very important. Don't expect your students to cling on to you, because in a classroom, it's a controlled environment. In an online world, it's not a controlled environment. And that's where we as teachers need to step up, right? Most importantly, don't let things distract you. This is where the mobile phone plays an important role, right? You get a call, you look at the call, and then you put the phone down. You don't know where you are. You have a baby running across the room, right? We all understand, but don't let them distract you. Try to deliver and focus your lecture in the best way possible, because ultimately your students have to benefit from that, right? Now, this is a point that I would really, really stress on, given the Indian scenario. Don't let away too much of information. Now, let's look at it from a personal, perception, right? When you're doing an online class, like how you're seeing right now, right? You're actually seeing this is my house. This is my bedroom, in fact, right? And there's a little bit of connection that I have with you, because I'm letting you in to my space and I'm showing you what's there in my house. Cut it there, right? Sometimes teachers get a little more involved with their students. They bring in their family members and they show, this is my son, this is my husband, this is my wife, this is my children. Please don't do that, right? They are students, yes. So please avoid doing all of that unless and until you trust the person on the other side. It becomes, you don't know, right, how things can be manipulated. So be very, very careful about that, right? Then coming to the next one, as I always said, right, don't create tough assignments because you want your students to do all the hard work. Remember, for you it's difficult, for them also it's difficult, right? And always answer doubts, right? Always answer doubts, because online teaching is all about answering doubts, right? A lot of people, and trust me when I say this, a lot of people will open up to you better in an online class than in a real class, because in a real class they are very shy. A boy may be very shy about the girl students when he wants to ask a question, right? Similarly, a bright student may be very shy about asking a question in class because he may think that the other students will judge him. A not so great student may be very inhibited about the fact that he has to ask a question because all the other students may laugh at him. But in an online class, all of this doesn't happen because your questions are not visible by the others. So people will open up to you in an online class. So always don't refuse to answer doubts. Answer doubts as much as it is possible, because that's what's going to help you go ahead with the session, and that's what's going to gain trust with the students. Finally, don't monopolize the conversation, right? Somebody was actually asking, don't monopolize the conversation, because how to really not monopolize the conversation. Actually, I would have loved if your mics were also on, where you could have also asked a lot of questions. I would have loved that, but because given the strength that we have, we did not do that. But always unmute your students when they want to talk, right? Or encourage your students to keep chatting with you on the question box. Keep an eye on the question box, because that is how you will not monopolize the conversation, right? This is where I think you should, if you have a small classroom, 20, 25 students, 30 students, you can always unmute them and you can always ask them to talk, right? That's a very nice thing that you can do if you really don't want to monopolize the conversation. But when you talk about monopolizing the conversation, the other thing that you have to understand is, it's not only about one person talking, but I think monopolizing the conversation is also about one person talking in the same tone for 2 hours. That is also monopolizing the conversation, right? You should, that is where the drama comes into picture, the storytelling comes into picture, those nice animations that you do that come into the picture. That is how your people are not going to realize that, okay, monopolizing the conversation is not going to really be effective, right? So think of ways in which you can keep your students engaged, and that's very, very, very important. And that becomes the DNA of any online class. Finally, everybody has to start somewhere. I know we all have baggage of teaching students for 20 years. We have a lot of experience, but I want to make a very strong statement over here. All of our experience of teaching people for 20 years or 30 years or 10 years doesn't really hold good if we are not able to adapt to the changes of the education, right? The education industry is changing, the way in which classes are delivered are changing, and that is when a teacher also has to change, right? If you're going to hold on to your methods, a teacher is an example of versatility, right? You guys have to start changing, and you guys have to start bringing in this revolution. We are the teachers. We are the first generation online teachers. We should be very proud of it. And we have to bring in the change going forward, because online teaching, you may like it or not, is going to be the norm of the art, right? So I will now ask you, I'll now keep it a little questions. I'll quickly take in some comments. Thank you very much. I think I'm seeing a lot of nice and wonderful comments that I get from your screen. It was a pleasure doing this session for you, right? And I hope you enjoyed this session as well, right? If you want to follow me, you can obviously follow me. I will quickly show you my details. You can always follow me on LinkedIn, or you can also follow me on Facebook. And you can also follow me on Quora. I contribute a lot on LinkedIn, Quora, and Facebook. It's very nice. My name is a very unique name. So you just go type for my name and you'll see my profile comes out to be the first, right? So you can follow me, and you have any doubts, you have anything to ask, you want any further help in the future, I'm always there for you, and I'll try to help you in the best way possible, right? So I hope this session was interesting for you. and I enjoyed doing this session. I love the comments for you guys. Thank you very much, and that's pretty much I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sai Kiran sir. It was really a very engaging and superb presentation from sir. Definitely the inputs and the practical tips which have been given by Sai Kiran sir have definitely kept our audience engaged, and I could see the same on the chat section. So thank you very much, Sai Kiran sir, for your practical tips to our delegates. But I would also like to take some more questions from our delegates. Like we have a question here from Mahendra Kamath sir. How to overcome the phobia of English in rural education among the students learned in the who have been brought up in the vernacular medium, especially in the context of the online mode?
Right. So that's a nice question. How to really overcome the phobia, right? How to really make students overcome the phobia. The answer to that question is number one, they have to start somewhere, right? And as teachers, I think we first need to create the environment where they can express themselves without any judgment, right? Most of the times people are, and I have a lot of my own friends who are learning communication, and they come to me because they don't want to go to another teacher because the teacher might judge him or her, right? So the point is we have to first create an environment where people don't have the fear of getting judged. Number two, after creating that environment, you encourage the people to talk. Now, how do you encourage people to talk? I have a I read across this very interesting theory that said you ask people to think in English before they speak in English, right? That's a very, very valid point, right? We speak our mother tongue so fluently because we think in our mother tongue. And Indians especially have that problem. They think in their mother tongue and they try to speak in English. The brain cannot multitask. The brain can always do one task at a time at its best performance. So I would always ask you to encourage people to think in English and then speak. And then from there, it all becomes feedback, feedback, feedback. You encourage them and you try to put the positives, and that's how you slowly pull them out of the entire zone. That's something that has worked for me in the past.
True, sir, true. We have a very a different question actually, and it's very important question from Madam Manurathi. How to mark the attendance of students?
On Google Classroom.
Yeah, on any online platform, how to mark the attendance?
How to mark the attendance? Okay, so I will give you an idea. So what happens is if you use let's say a paid software like a GoToWebinar or a WizIQ or a Blackboard Collaborate, these are usually the softwares that are used. You don't have to do anything. The software itself will give you a report of the attendees. It will give you an attendance report, right? But if you're using a free software just like a Google Meet or a Hangouts, then what I would suggest you to do is you can use a Google form, right? Which a student has to fill. Only if he fills the Google form, he will get the link for the class, right? So that is one way in which you can capture attendance. But again, depending on the tool that you use, the attendance is automatically captured. If it's not automatically captured, then you can use a Google form with a name, email ID, phone number to quickly capture the attendance. That's how we do, in fact, for our classes.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Another question, last question I would take, like, is it possible to conduct exams on Google Classroom?
Oh, definitely, yes. So as I was telling you, I don't know, maybe I can quickly show you my screen one more time. If you look at a Google Classroom, right, you go into a Google Classroom, you will be able to create assignments. I'll quickly show you how to do one. So you pick in a classroom that you want, go to this section called as classwork, right? And create an assignment, which is a quiz assignment. And you can also look at over here, if you see, there are points, right? So you can set up points, you can add questions, you can add helping material, you can create new questions, you can create new slides, you can do whatever you want. Essentially, you can do that using Google Slides, Google Classrooms. It's very much possible for you to create a complete exam using Google Forms.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much for those questions. I think you have mostly answered all the questions of our participants. And really, it was a great session from you, sir. And we were all apprised about some benefits of online teaching. Especially, I like the fact that the best of the teachers can reach out to our students. And that is really a great thing you have told. And the hardware and the software, which essentially we should all try to have with us. And of course, the 10 commandments, which we should all remember. And definitely, I would like to appreciate our delegates who have actively participated in this session, because I could see the prompt responses on the chat during the session, and getting to know the perspectives of people and sharing of various opinions was wonderful today. It was a great session. Thank you very much, Mr. Sai Kiran. Thank you to all the participants for joining us today. Finally, wrapping up the day 2 of this FTP, I would like to thank everyone for their rejuvenated energy today, especially being the evening session. And on behalf of Department of First Year Engineering and on my own behalf, I thank our speaker, Mr. Sai Kiran Dudhiala, for sharing his expertise today. And I wholeheartedly thank all the delegates for the active participation. It was a pleasure to meet you all delegates on this online platform. See you all tomorrow at 11. Till then, stay safe, stay connected.